Welcome to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Brecheen.
Hi, everyone. You're listening to Lee Brecheen with the Sports Scouting Report. Glad you could join us, whether you're driving in your car, on your computer, listening on your cell phone. We've got a great show today. We've got an interview with one of the best offensive line coaches in Louisiana at Byrd High School, Lindsey Bruno. Lindsey Bruno will join us today. We'll be talking about Byrd High School. His son, Carson Bruno, is committed to Louisiana Tech. He's a really big-time sleeper defensive tackle that's going to play O-line in college at 6'4", 290. And I think he's one of the biggest sleepers in the state to convert to offensive line. He could play center or guard or tackle. We're also going to have our recruits of the week. I've got two of them, one from Marksville, Chris Simon, and also from McDonogh 35, we're going to talk about David Ellis. Two big-time sleeper recruits in Louisiana. We're going to do two today. We're going to have our college notes and a lot of other stuff we're going to talk about today. Interesting, we got a little stuff on Ed Orgeron with LSU and also Nick Saban, the coaching tree. We're going to kind of look at who all the coaches that have coached under him, how they're doing, and in my opinion, and we'll just, I think it'd be fun for listeners to think about all the former coaches under Saban and who's really the best coach that's coached under Nick. Who's the best one? And there's a ton of them, but let's go ahead and go on our first segment. And it's college notes. Speaking of that, we're going to go ahead and talk about Ed Orgeron. And the big thing about Ed that I was thinking about the other day, and I don't know if anybody's hit on this yet. And I did my research about national championships. And I was thinking, and I haven't seen anybody say anything. Who has won a national championship that's a Louisiana native? It's Ed Orgeron. So LSU's got 4 national championships. And the other 3 coaches, they were not from Louisiana. Nick Saban's from West Virginia. Paul Diesel's from Fremont, Ohio. Les Miles is from Ohio. And if they count the 1908 national championship, that coach was from Pennsylvania. So if they do count that, say 5. And it gets even better than that. So truly, if you're listening to this, try and think of someone that's won a national championship as a head coach, not as an assistant, a head coach that's from Louisiana. I can't think of anybody. I was thinking, I was trying to research it for the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, the 70s. I don't know anybody that's from Louisiana that's a head football coach that's won a national championship. I think it's the only time it's ever happened, which I find remarkable. Because there's so many college coaches through the years that are from Ohio, Pennsylvania, they're from Florida, like Steve Spurrier, Urban Meyer, I think he's from Ohio. You can just name Ohio natives, Tennessee, they're from Alabama, Texas. But there's only one I can think of, and it's not just that Ed Orgeron's from here. He is the only one I can think of, which is remarkable with all the great football in Louisiana. And I think it has something to do with, I was thinking of this, and I've always thought of this growing up. All your great legends from LSU football, most of them, 99% of them didn't get into coaching. And that's something to think about. Billy Cannon, the late Billy Cannon, he did not get into coaching. He would have been a great coach. Tommy Hodson didn't become a college coach. Burt Jones. All these great players that came through LSU that were great, that could have become great coaches. They just didn't do it. And you got Spurrier, he became a coach from Florida. Like he played at Florida as a quarterback. And, won national championships at Florida. But, it's just something in Louisiana. A lot of the great players that played at LSU over the years, they just didn't get into coaching. White Tittle, he didn't become a coach. He would have been a great coach. And I think that's why LSU's had a hard time getting a Louisiana native as a head coach prior to Ed Orgeron. There just wasn't a lot of big-time former LSU players that got into coaching. And you're seeing more of it now. You're seeing a lot of young guys getting into coaching that are going to start becoming part of this tree. I would hope that Matt Flynn might get into coaching at some point. I think he would become a very good college coach. I think Matt Malk would have made a good college coach. But none of these guys are coaching college football like, the guys that could become the next offensive mind, like a Spurrier for LSU that played at LSU. Well, Flynn's from Texas, but it doesn't matter. I'm just saying with those ties to LSU. But as far as a Louisiana native, I just find it interesting that, I was going back to the 60s, and I can't even think of anybody that's from Louisiana that won a national championship. So, that is so remarkable. That's historic. Not just LSU. Not that he's just from Louisiana, but the only one to do it. I want to go ahead and get into some former assistants, some talk about Nick Saban. And, I know obviously Louisiana, a lot of people in Louisiana are waiting for him to retire. I respect him. I did a lot of work for him when he was at LSU. Actually, his whole tenure at LSU, I worked with him in recruiting. I worked with Derek Dooley when he was a recruiting coordinator. Worked with Lance Thompson when he was the recruiting coordinator for Nick. Whoever was the recruiting coordinator, I worked with them with Nick and helped him for Louisiana. We would film the games and break down the prospects. This was before analyst. And I'm just going to give you my favorite assistant coach that I think is going to be the best one. I really believe that Jeremy Pruitt, currently the coach at Tennessee, is going to end up being the best assistant coach that's left the Saban tree. And look, guys, think about it, because I think this is something in a podcast that people would love to hear. It makes you think. I don't think Will Muschamp's going to probably get another big-time head coaching job if this South Carolina job doesn't work, and the heat's on him. Big time. South Carolina fans are not happy with Will Muschamp. If he doesn't have a great year this year, meaning 9 wins, which is 9-3, it could be over. Mel Tucker, it's his first head coaching job. We'll see how he does. At Michigan State, it's a great job, but it's too early to tell. Kirby Smart, he's kind of like where Mark Richt was. You play for a lot of national championships and SEC championships. You don't win any of them. And I don't know how much longer they can endure that in Georgia. The problem of having success, if you don't win any, then, you can't stay there forever. And so if they don't break through this year, Georgia, the heat's going to be on him in 2021. And I know that sounds crazy, but they want championships. Georgia's starving for one since 1981 under, Vince Dooley. Burton Burns was never a head coach, but I think one of the best recruiters ever with Nick. He's now in the NFL, Louisiana native. Derek Dooley didn't do really well at Louisiana Tech. He did okay. And then at Tennessee, it was just a bomb. It wasn't really good at Tennessee. So, he's now at Missouri. Lane Kiffin hasn't really done really great in the pros as a head coach, and also USC. Lane is, I don't know, this might be the time he becomes the greatest former assistant under Saban with Ole Miss. They've got some talent, and maybe he's matured as a coach. He's been a head coach at an early age. He's, he was Florida and Atlantic, and, USC, was head coach of Oakland Raiders. I thought he was hired as the head coach for Oakland Raiders a little bit too early. Jim McElwain, it just didn't work out at Florida. Just didn't work out. I mean, they went to the Atlanta championship game twice. They lost both of those games. Then it got kind of weird at the end. So, and then Doug Nussmeier. I think he'll be a head coach soon. I mean, he's with the Dallas Cowboys, was an offensive coordinator for Saban, was a quarterback at Idaho, and coached a long time with Michigan State, New Orleans Saints, several NFL teams. But out of all those great coaches, and there's more than this, I still think Jeremy Pruitt, and the reason I do, will be the best former assistant from Saban as a head coach, is because I think he gets it defensively. And you're seeing that these defensive coaches own football, college football. Ed Orgeron's a defensive guy. Nick Saban's a defensive guy. And defense, look, wins it in the end. If you don't have a good defense, you're not going to win a national championship. I don't care how good your offense is. Look at Oklahoma. I mean, Oklahoma, averages 40, 50 points a game every year, and they can't win a national championship. But you have to have a defense. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we're going to have our interview with Lindsey Bruno, the offensive line coach from Byrd High School, in segment 2. We'll be right back.
Hello, Louisiana Football Magazine fans. Like what you're hearing? Well, you're going to love our content on LAFootballMagazine.com. This week, we have 2 recruit spotlights on St. James defensive end Savion Jones, who just committed to the LSU Tigers this past week, and also one of the best athletes in the state in Catholic Point Capiz, Matthew Langlois. Finally, make sure to check out not only today's podcast, but Mondays as well. So what are you waiting for? And go to LAFootballMagazine.com today.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Lee Brecheen, the Sports Scouting Report. We've got a great guest today, and it's our human interest segment, which is very interesting. We have a coach who's not only a coach at a high school, but his son is also a starter on the football team, and not just a starter, but a big-time D1 player who's an offensive tackle, I think, or guard in college, but he's D-line for Byrd High School. We got Coach Lindsey Bruno and his son, Carson Bruno. But Coach Lindsey Bruno, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Lee, and Jason setting us up.
Yeah, and, Lindsey, I've talked to you in the past. You were the head football coach at Northwood High School in Shreveport. You're a native of the New Orleans area. You're from Chalmette, and I didn't know that till today. I didn't know that you were from South Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
And, you coached along. You started at Hannon High School when it was in Monroe, and also you've been at Minden High School, Airline High School, and this is 10 years already at Byrd. Do you pinch yourself and go, man, I can't believe it's 10 years at Byrd now?
Yeah, it's been pretty fast. At Byrd, the 10 years have flown by.
Now you're the offensive line coach, correct, Coach? The offensive line coach.
Yes, sir. I started out when I was at Byrd. My first year I was on the D-line, and then Coach Suggs asked me to come over to O-line. I've always been an O-line guy, but I've coached probably every position except defensive backs. But I'm always been an O-line. I guess you could call it O-line guy. Yeah,
those guys in the trenches, man, that's a hard position to coach. Technique, and you got to get some of these guys to play mean, and you got to coach guys to pull, and you got to develop a center. People don't understand you got to develop a center. You got to develop 2 different kind of guards, 2 different kind of tackles. But most people go, oh, it's just an offensive line, right? So,
they don't realize, and they always think we run the same play.
But the reason I wanted you to call in today, and Jace talked to you yesterday, was that your son is going to be a class of 221 senior, Carson Bruno, who's going to be a 3-year starter. I know you're proud of him. He's 6'4". Depending on what hamburger he ate every day, I got him about 270. Is that about right, Coach?
No, he's like 290.
290. Well, he's eating some steak since I've talked to you and your son. But legit 6'4", plays D tackle. And he's committed to Louisiana Tech in Ruston. And I like your son, by the way, as a player, Coach. I saw him play 2 or 3 games the last 2 years. I went up and saw a Thursday night game 2 years ago, even though it wasn't a good night against Evangel Christian. But your son showed me at an early age, as a sophomore. I don't know. He might have been about 240 then, 250, 6'4" then.
He was light.
But he could move. He had good feet. And I was like, who is this sophomore on this D-line? This is a big kid. This kid can move, and he has high effort. And he's committed to Louisiana Tech, and I'm taking it he's going to play O-line. I'm just seeing, that's what I see in him. But is that what they're going to do with your son?
Yeah, yes, sir. Coach Mack at Louisiana Tech talking about him playing center possibly or guard. And maybe even tackle if he gets a little taller, his wingspan gets a little bit longer. He said he might even put him there. But we've been working on shotgun snapping the ball during this Corona time a little bit, just on the side. But offensive line, the schools are recruiting at both O-line and D-line. But he knew through the process that he may have to change over to O-line, and he'd go with it.
Coach, we're talking to Coach Lindsey Bruno from Byrd High School, the offensive line coach, whose son, Carson Bruno, is committed to Louisiana Tech. Coach, what is it like to be coaching at Byrd and your son's on the team? And has there ever come a time where you told Coach Suggs, hey, can I get him on the O-line? Can we play him on O-line for me? Or has that ever come across, maybe get some O-line snaps too?
Yes, sir. It's funny because when I was already at Byrd, he's grown up, and like I told Jace last week, he's grown up in football and watching film, and he from the start he said he wanted to play D-line. I'm like, oh, that's fine. It's no big deal, you know. But then at Byrd, he's like, I'm gonna go play D-line, Dad. I said, that's fine, man. But, you know, a 14 or the 18-year-old kid, they want to hear their name called on making tackles and all of that. So I was thinking at it from that perspective. And I'm sure he was wanting to do that. But I told him jokingly that we're going to beat you up every day at practice. We're going to try to knock you down, do a lot of other nasty things to you.
We're going to challenge you. I'm your dad. I can tell you that, right?
Yeah, and he's actually kind of does that to us now, back at us now. But it's been a real fun deal, and just having him around and watching him grow up in it the whole time, you know.
I want to go ahead and brag on him a little bit. Your son has a 4.2 GPA. That's incredible. I couldn't have had a 4.2 if I'd have studied for 8 months straight, but qualified in the ACT department, 39 tackles last year, had several solo tackles. For a big guy, that's really impressive. And Coach, what I was wanting to ask you is recruiting over? Like, is it something that if the big schools come calling, like, you know, Alabama or any of those schools, would it be something y'all relook at, or are y'all pretty much done with Louisiana Tech? I know it's early in the process.
During this whole time, it's been a little off and on. The whole process. It started back in January when we went to the junior day at Tech, and he got an offer on that day. So that Tech started it all off, really. And then he wound up getting several more through the whole process. Now I think it's kind of slowed down a little bit. He'll say, Dad, I'll talk to this one, I'll talk to that one, or this one tweeted me or something like that. But I think it's kind of slowed down a little bit since he's committed to Tech. But I've told him from the start to keep an open mind, and so is Tech. And when they offered him from the start, they told him to keep an open mind. And he just fell in love with it, though. At Louisiana Tech, and those guys have done a great job recruiting him. I don't know. I told him I told him to wait a little bit, but during these times, it's been a little different, you know, with the recruiting process,
right.
I think.
Right.
So a lot of these boys, I think, recruit or committing early, I think. But just because of the time, they're getting anxious, and we didn't go through spring. And I don't know. I think he's open-minded. I mean, but I think he's pretty solid on Louisiana Tech. But heck, you never know. I mean, you get one of those kids that been from Louisiana and LSU or Alabama or somebody like that college. I'm sure a lifelong dream for anybody.
But that would be tough.
Yeah, but we're not really. I just tell them, you don't worry about all of that. You just go out there and play, and all of that take care of yourself down the road.
Lindsey, people might not know this, but you played football at Holy Cross, and
Yes, sir.
they just hired Nick Salter from Maggio. What do you think of that hire? He's a friend of mine, won a state title at East Jeff, as you know. Did a good job in Hahnville, took Hahnville. They were runner-ups a couple of years ago in the state championship game. But Holy Cross has a lot of talent, too.
Oh, yeah. Coach Salt was actually at Holy Cross when I was there. We weren't really that good when I was in the late 80s, early 90s. I graduated in 92, but we weren't really that good. We went through a few coaches when I was there. Coach Salt was actually an assistant coach. I was real younger though. I might have been in 8th or 9th grade. So
okay.
And I think he might have left, but I think I met him a couple times. I'm excited about it. We always want me and my buddies, our alumni buddies, always want Holy Cross to win, except when we're playing them.
You know, Coach, I did some research, and I know that you're very humble with this, and so is your son with his recruiting. But you know, and I've followed Byrd since 1991. In the last 15 years, I don't remember any lineman, O or D line, going to a D1 school. I think your son's one of the first in many years under Coach Suggs and this staff. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm talking about signing a D1 scholarship, an offensive or defensive lineman.
Yeah, we actually have one guy right now at the Army Academy in West Point, Zach Ward, that signed a few years ago. He was kind of a late signee. LSU was wanting him as a tight end, and it didn't work out. And he wound up, and then ULL was on him. They offered him, and then he wound up going to West Point. And he's there now. He got hurt, and I think he's got a chance to play this year. But he'd be the only lineman that I know of. And I've been in Shreveport-Bossier area for 21 years now. So, and then you got Jerry Byrd years ago. That was in the 80s and late 80s and early 90s. Jerry was a Byrd lineman.
Yeah.
He's principal with us now, but he played at Tech. But other than that, no, we're not really known for the what you call college linemen. I remember meeting you one time at Lee Hedges one night. I think we were playing one of the Catholic schools, and we were down there in the end zone. And you came walking up and said, "Coach, this your offensive line?" I said, "Yeah, we don't really look like it. This is what we got." But yeah, it's been good for him. I mean, it's been a good process. I know Coach Suggs is saying that he's been around forever, so he could probably tell you a little bit better than I have. But
yeah,
we get every now and then we get a few skill guys come through, but not much linemen. It's hard to find those guys.
Well, I wanted to tell you, I don't want to go in depth on the whole team or anything, but we're going to do that in a preview magazine that'll come out in August. But brag on your O-line. I mean, you're the O-line coach. I know you got some good players coming back, William Anderson, and you've got 3 or 4 seniors coming back. So you actually have a decent O-line coming back this year with some good size. I mean, a lot of guys that could go D2 or D3 or 1AA like William. But talk about your O-line, because it is, to me, and you know this, but it's a really pretty good O-line coming back.
Yes, sir. Getting back to earlier question, too, when you said trying to get Carson to play on the O-line since he's on a D-line, we even talked about that this year. I said, Coach Suggs, I need to get him I need to get him a few reps at tackle or anyway. I was thinking tackle, but he wears 94, so Coach Suggs says, "No, we got to put him at tight end." I'm like, "Oh yeah, he'll like that." But getting back to previous question, we got I got 4 guys that have either started or got reps for us last year. I lose 2 seniors. Trey Lester went to Arkansas Pine Bluff.
Yeah.
I lost James Russian, and then the other ones I have experience. So either starting. I know 3 of them or 4 of them got starts. I'm gonna have Bobby Simpson and Josh Courtney at the guards. They're gonna be seniors. I got Marshall Miller. He's my little guy. I call him my little guy, but I've always had a little center.
But he's tough. Marshall being 5'8", 5'9", 190. He plays like he's 270 to me.
Yeah, that's what we always had at Byrd, and really during my whole career, I've always had a little center because option football and wing T, a lot of stuff that we do, we don't get up high on anybody anyway. So Marshall's got a lot of reps in at center, and then I got Caden Rayner at a tackle that's got some a lot of reps last year. So I really just got to find one guy at a tackle. So it's been good. Yeah, it's good. And then with the D line with Will Anderson and Carson and a lot of those guys, we got Campbell Brown that left Captain Shreve and sat out a year. He was a starter for Shreve as a freshman, and he's gonna be with us as a senior. So that's gonna when you have a good O&D line, it really doesn't matter what you have behind them. You can win some games, I think.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen the last 10 years, I know this will be your 10th year, but just going by your 10 years that following the team, I like what y'all have on OD line as far as coming back. I think it's got the ability to win a lot of games, and obviously y'all very talented in the defensive backfield with Brandon Hermes and Militella and Grider. I mean, those are 3 really good seniors, and got a good young quarterback, and good receivers, and always a bunch of running backs rotating on that offense. But wanted to mention this coming season, and I know it's been pretty tough for all families, everybody, all coaches. What's the outlook, and how's Byrd been training and this, pandemic and everything closed down? Are y'all pretty happy overall talking to these kids where they are? And I know every school's having to make do, right?
Yes, sir. Well, as a team aspect of it, we're going to get tested early. We're going to have Brother Martin and then Zachary week 2, so in a battle on the border. So that's going to be pretty fun starting out. But we'll get tested early there. As far as the spring, I mean, everybody's in the same boat. I think I put it in that kind of perspective. It's just this case, a lot of them had to do it on their own.
Yeah.
Tough. And you got to think about it. I know Carson worked, being that I was there a lot with him and doing his deal, and several other guys who worked. Junior Brown, he's put in a lot of time. I've seen him on Twitter doing a lot of work, and a lot of other ones, Bobby Simpson, but a lot of them don't have the means to do that. So.
Yeah.
And some of them need the coach there to push them every day and say, hey, all right. And it wasn't like we can say, hey, meet me up at school at 2 o'clock. We couldn't do that. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be, I think we just got to start. It's not like we're going to be able to start like we didn't miss a beat. You got to kind of go back and get them in shape, I think, because spring football, you would have had them in shape at the end of spring,
right?
And then they were ready to go into summertime. But now we kind of going to have to backtrack a little bit, I think, and just to see got to evaluate where they are and kind of just start from scratch. But then in 2 months' time, you're going to be playing,
Right. Well, we're listening to Coach Lindsey Bruno, offensive line coach for Byrd High School. The head coach here for many years is Mike Suggs, one of the longest tenured head coaches in the state, over 25 years. I've been doing the magazine 24. He's been there longer than the magazine. And Lindsey, look, man, I wish you the best of luck this year with your O-line. I know you're working tirelessly right now to get those kids ready. And I know you teach, coaches teach and also coach. And I just hope wish the best for Carson's future. I know if he doesn't get an LSU Alabama offer going to Tech, that's a great school, and I think he's going to have a great future there, like you said, as a center or guard, and has a chance to be a great college player. And look, y'all do a great job at Byrd. I want to tell you, y'all are undersized a lot in these 5A matchups in the trenches, and I've been impressed with the coaching that you and Suggs and the rest of that staff do. Y'all really coach these guys up. And do a great job with this program.
I appreciate it, Coach. Appreciate you giving us the time. And like I said, we Carson's totally ecstatic and humbled to be that Coach Holtz and his staff have given him this opportunity.
Well, it seems like everybody LSU messes up with. When I say messes up, can't put in the class or someone that could play at LSU. All the good ones are going to Tech, it seems. And you see that in the NFL. You see the players that come out of there, like Trent Taylor, that went to Evangel, that didn't get an offer from LSU. He's in the NFL now as a wideout. But look at the DBs. Look at Snead getting drafted the other day in the NFL draft from Menden.
Right. And I just think it doesn't matter where you go. They're gonna see and find you if you can play, and that's just like in high school. Really, kids getting recruited in this case, and sometimes it really all depends on the coaches, and sometimes they want a national name, and they think it's better than get a national guy rather than get a hometown guy that's just as good. I've told Carson that, and told him get ready for a walk-on to be better than you and more hungry than you, and you got to be able to battle that every day, So
right. There's no rankings in college. Everybody's back to zero when you get to college. Right. Well, Lindsey, man, look, y'all stay safe and healthy, and I'm happy that everybody's going to be getting back in June to practice, or at least start going to the facilities. And good luck to Byrd High School, the Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, appreciate it, Lee. Thanks for having us, man.
All right, Coach. That was Coach Lindsey Bruno, the offensive line coach from Byrd High School. His son, Carson Bruno, is one of the top, I think, center guards in the state, committed to Louisiana Tech. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll be right back.
Parents, are you looking for advice on getting your high school athlete recruited by the right college? Lee Brecheen is your answer. Lee has been doing it for over 30 years. He knows the ropes, and more importantly, he knows the people. Lee offers turnkey service from evaluation, creating highlight tapes in the correct format, and complete guidelines for effective communication with the schools. No matter the sport, girl or boy, no matter what grade your child is in, let Lee Brecheen help match your child to the right college fit. Go to our website, lafootballmagazine.com, and get connected today.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report with Lee Brecheen. Glad that you can join us. Tell your friends. Look, I've been making a mistake. I've been telling all our fans to just download a show, but also hit the word follow, because that's important too. I'm learning as I go. I'm just a normal guy, with the podcast that's been following football, basketball, baseball, track forever, and been in it since 91, but I'm learning the podcast business. I'm learning all the equipment. Hope you're enjoying the shows, and but hit the word follow and download. So download a show and hit follow, and we can grow. And we're going to try as much as we can to avoid having advertisers. We have an idea that's coming up pretty soon to avoid that with help of our fans. Where I try not to, I would hope we don't put any commercials on the show unless we have to, to grow, just to have income on it. But I'm glad we're able to do the podcast. In this segment, I've got our recruit of the week. We got two of them. So the first one I'm going to talk about is going to be David Ellis from McDonogh 35. And look, if you're listening to this show, I've been following recruiting, since the 80s. I've been in the business since 91. I don't get into rankings. I get into if these guys can play or not and in what level. And that's what I did for colleges, and I still do. I'll tell a college, they'll call me and say, look, can this guy play at, Auburn? Is he a red shirt guy? Is he a development guy? Is he polished? Before they even look at film. And I'll tell them straight out. No rankings, just how good is this kid? From watching him play. I'll watch him and go to the games. So the first recruit is David Ellis. And the reason I like David is that he's 6 foot tall, about 205 pounds. He's a safety that's going to play outside linebacker in college. And look, McDonogh 35 has produced a lot of big-time DBs the last 3 years. I mean, they've got an All-American DB right now at Arkansas, Joe Fuqua, who's 5'11", about 215, runs a 4.5, and led the team in tackles last year for Arkansas. And will be in the NFL as a starter. He'll be a high draft pick. He is a big-time hitter. And that's what this kid Ellis is. He is a big-time hitter. And he can read everything. He's strong. And he's a tackling machine, and he's gifted. And even though he's not ranked high, I mean, again, if you see him play in person, you just watch him in a full game in pads, he's one of the best hitting defensive backs in the state of Louisiana. And he's a safety. Now, he's going to grow into a linebacker, and the reason he's not a national recruit probably is because he's an in-between right now. But if you look at his upside and where he's going to play in college, he's going to make that move to outside linebacker, and he's going to be very gifted because he runs a 4.5 40. And at 6 foot tall, 205, he'll weigh about 220. He's going to be like this kid Joe Fuqua, who's now going to be a linebacker basically for Arkansas, but signed as a DB out of high school. Same thing. And so these big hybrid safeties that grow into outside linebacker, it's really only a few pounds difference from their high school to college jump. But these guys aren't projects. They can run and they can hit. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for guys that can cover. They're looking for guys that come up and run support. And they're looking for guys that can blitz. And I think David Ellis is one of the best in the state. Now, again, I don't put any emphasis on what star he is and all that stuff. I think he's a big-time D1 player. And like Joe Fuqua, who was not heavily recruited and not offered by LSU, again, he's leading Arkansas in tackles as a sophomore. And going into his junior year in 220, he's going to be their best player on defense right out of McDonogh 35. So David Ellis, keep an eye on him. He had 100 tackles in 2019. Get this, 18 tackles for losses. That's a lot of tackles for losses, 18. 10 sacks. Folks, this is a DB that's going to be an outside linebacker. 10 sacks, 18 tackles for losses. David Ellis, McDonogh 35. And I want to mention again the passing of their coach, Wayne Reese Sr. My condolences to them again because he was going to coach this team this year with David Ellis, and I know they're going to be playing for their coach this year. Frank Daggs is one of my friends who's on that staff, been there forever. And Wayne Reese's son is a head coach in New Orleans at another school. But I think it's going to be a great year for McDonogh 35. They're going to play for their coach. They're going to play for Coach Wayne Reese. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to have our other recruit of the week, Chris Simon from Marksville High School, a big-time defensive tackle. We'll be right back.
Hello, Louisiana Football Magazine fans. Like what you're hearing? Well, you're going to love our content on LAFootballMagazine.com. This week, we have two recruit spotlights on St. James defensive end Savion Jones, who just committed to the LSU Tigers this past week, and also one of the best athletes in the state in Catholic Point Capiz, Matthew Langlois. Finally, make sure to check out not only today's podcast, but Mondays as well. So what are you waiting for? And go to LAFootballMagazine.com today.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report with Lee Brecheen. I hope you're enjoying the show. Our second recruit of the week is out of the great city of Marksville, Louisiana, Marksville High School. If you think of Marksville, I think of Chad Lavallee that played at LSU, who was an All-American, had a chance to see him. Chad Lavallee was returning kickoffs in high school at 6'3", 270, and returning them for touchdowns. That's when I knew Chad Lavallee was going to be a great defensive lineman at LSU. And that's all Nick Saban needed to see. When I sent him the film, back when I was doing that with the film before huddle, Chad Lavallee returning punts and kickoffs at 270, 6'3" was the sight to see. If you could ever get your hands on those videos, trust me, people, I've never seen a lineman do that. But this kid, Chris Simon, some people say Simone in Louisiana, but Chris Simon is 6'2", 282 pounds, runs about a 4.9 40, which is really moving at 282. And he plays that DN spot as well as D tackle, because here's a guy that I watched in 218 as a sophomore. He was about 250, and he can move, and he's got high effort. In 219, he got up to about 270, 275. Still can move. Still a high effort guy. Great with his hands, great feet, strong lower body. And then this coming year, 2020, he's 282 pounds. So this is a guy that just wasn't always big. He has grown into his body. He's put together. There's not a lot of fat on him. And he actually can run really well. I think he's a starter in D1 football. He's very underrated right now. Because if you watch him play, Chris Simon, his high effort, he's got good feet, he's strong, and he runs like a Mike linebacker. I mean, he doesn't run like a guy 282 pounds, 6'2". And he's hidden. And so for schools like Louisiana Tech, ULM of Monroe, and Tulane, these are the perfect schools for Chris, because he could be a big-time starter. He could be an NFL guy one day. And he's the best D-tackle DN I've seen come out of Marksville since Chad Lavallee. And Marksville's had some good football players come out at the skill positions. But he's the best D-tackle I've seen since Chad, because he can play DN in college because he's athletic. So that's our recruit of the week, our second one, Chris Simon from Marksville. And we're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, instead of taking emails from our fans, I've got some more notes to talk about for college football, and also some basketball notes. When we come back, we'll be right back.
Parents, are you looking for advice on getting your high school athlete recruited by the right college? Lee Brecheen is your answer. Lee has been doing it for over 30 years. He knows the ropes, and more importantly, he knows the people. Lee offers turnkey service from evaluation, creating highlight tapes in the correct format, and complete guidelines for effective communication with the schools. No matter the sport, girl or boy, no matter what grade your child is in, let Lee Brecheen help match your child to the right college fit. Go to our website, lafootballmagazine.com, and get connected today.
Welcome back. You're listening to Lee Brecheen with the Sports Scouting Report. I hope everybody's having a great Friday. I always look forward to Friday, even though I have to work on Saturday. I have to work on Saturday and Sunday on my own business, but I still look forward to Friday. We're going to go ahead and have some more notes. On this segment, I want to talk about you had the preseason, 1AA, Subdivision 1, I still say 1AA, All-American teams that came out. It kind of came out kind of under the radar. You know, it just didn't come out. They need to put this out mainstream media everywhere, but you know, it's kind of under the radar. But some interesting facts about the preseason 1AA All-American teams that relate to Louisiana. The first thing is there's a preseason first-team defensive back from southeastern Louisiana in Hammond. And that's a kid by the name of Philando Jordan. He's a defensive back out of Atlanta Mays High School. And going into his senior year, let's talk about last year as a junior in 2019. This kid had 3 interceptions for touchdowns. 3 interceptions for pick sixes. He had a 97-yard return for a score at Houston Baptist, which was one of the longest in school history. Just some facts for our listeners. He had a 65-yard pick six in a win over Stephen F. Austin and Jacksonville State. That's incredible. You don't really hear of guys have 3 interceptions and then touchdowns in the same season. Usually maybe 1 or 2. He's 6 foot, 185 pounds, a pro prospect from southeastern Louisiana. And again, he's from Atlanta Mays High School in Atlanta, Georgia. And here's a guy that was under the radar in recruiting. Wasn't a highly recruited defensive back, and now he's in position to get drafted after this coming season and be in an NFL camp. Way to go, Southeastern, man. And here's another stat. P.J. Burkhalter from Franklinton is on that preseason first-team offensive line with Nicholls State. Just a small 6'2", 310 pounds, going to be a senior in 220. A couple of more interesting notes about the preseason 1AA All-American team. Robert Rochelle is someone I covered in high school at a Fair Park. The old Fair Park, which is now Booker T. Washington in Shreveport, is a preseason 1AA second-team All-American defensive back at Central Arkansas. Remember that name, Robert Rochelle. He's 6'2", 185 pounds. And he is a pro prospect. You might hear his name called in the draft this coming year in 2021, Robert Rochelle. Remember that name. He's the last Fair Park player that's playing college football. That's another interesting note. And then you have one more kid that's a preseason second-team All-American DB from Oakdale High School, Darian Dunn, a DB at McNeese State in Lake Charles. Darian's 6'1", 192 pounds. He's also another pro prospect. I just thought our listening audience would love the Louisiana ties and stuff they don't really promote heavily on the internet. So when you're watching 1AA football, check Darian Dunn out and Robert Rochelle, P.J. Buckhalter, and also our guy, Fernando Jordan from Southeastern. Just, these are some really good pro prospect players that play for Louisiana colleges. I also want to mention on our podcast in basketball that Kentucky has renewed their basketball series with the University of Notre Dame. I'm not a big Notre Dame fan. I don't know why. I've just never been one. But Notre Dame, Kentucky basketball back in the 80s and 70s was really good games. And I'm glad they brought it back. I'm glad they're going to play. They're going to start playing next year for 3 years. It's their first matchup, first game since 2012. It will be at a neutral site, so Notre Dame has a chance. It won't be at Rupp Arena. Anytime you play at Rupp Arena, it's hard to win. So it will be at a neutral site. I'm sure Notre Dame took that into account when they're going to play Kentucky. But I really think Notre Dame is a good game for Kentucky. I don't think Kentucky's non-conference schedule is super tough outside of Louisville. And I'm glad they're starting to beef up their non-conference schedule for the future. I hope you enjoyed the show. We always research and try and come up with some interesting stats. Next Friday, we're going to introduce our strongest high school football players in the state. So if you're a mom or dad or a high school coach listening to this, if you don't turn it in by Monday, this coming Monday, then we're not going to be able to use anything. If you have a kid that's super strong in the bench press, the squat, or the clean, or other, we're going to talk about the strongest football players in high school football, pound for pound, in the clean, mostly the clean, the bench, and the squat for football. And again, if you don't turn in the information by Monday, this coming Monday, we're not going to be able to use it. And we've been doing this for about a month. And me and Jace have been getting these stats for about 2.5 months, talking to a lot of kids and coaches around the state. Some of them we already have. But if you feel like we haven't interviewed you yet, send it to lbrecheen@aol.com or just email it to our website, lafootballmagazine.com. again, hit the follow button and the download to show so we can grow. And I hope you have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Brecheen.